formal actions taken, but the meeting is being recorded. It's being live streamed, so there's an audio and video recording of it. And for those folks who are in remote locations, welcome as well. Just a real quick bit of history. The addition to the fire station project back in 2017, Chief Buchholz and his staff put together a list of, on a single sheet of paper, but list of things that could be included in an addition to the fire station. The town board turned that into what was called a request for proposals, a request for qualifications, and that was submitted or made available to architectural and engineering firms who responded with their qualifications and interest. I don't remember exactly, Kathy might, but we got about, I think, 9 or 10 responses, something like that. We shortlisted, pared it down to 3, interviewed those 3 firms, picked one. It ended up being a firm by the name of Angus Young from Janesville, Wisconsin. And we worked with them fairly intensively for 3 months in like May, June, and July of 2017 on really 2 things, not only the addition of the fire station, but kind of a master plan for the public works facility on the west side of the building. I think they came, I think we went through 11 different renditions of the public works component of it. They were refinements, they were iterations of it. Supervisors Wolf and Durr and I participated in those, as did staff people. 9 different iterations or schemes for the fire station addition that was presented to the town and the town board in July of 2017. The town board then incorporated those projects into a capital plan, the 2018 to 2022 capital plan, which included the addition of the fire station. It was approved for construction in the capital budget for 2018, but the project did not move ahead. In December of 2017, and it's kind of been stalled since then. It's in the budget again for construction in 2019. We're almost to June here, kind of late in the year, but the reason this is on the agenda for committee of the whole meeting tonight is to discuss where we're at. There are 2 new members of the board, Supervisors German and Stigler, who are not on the previous board. So we need to have a discussion about it and see if we can come to a determination as to whether this project is going to move ahead or not. So at that point, I'm going to leave it there. I don't know, Sean, are you able to project? We do have the place we were at on November 2nd of 2017. It's there. It's a floor plan. Was the last place we were at, and it was proposed as a 2-story addition on the east side of the existing fire station. I don't remember exact dimensions, but I think it was 34 or 35 feet east to west, and something double that north to south. There were other considerations about renovation of the building entrance, extension of a bay where the existing ladder truck is, but that's where we ended up. So I'll open it up at this point in time to discussion. That's the purpose of this. I see we do have some folks from the fire department in the audience. There may be some questions of you, and you can participate. So we need to have an open discussion on that. I mean, just quickly, and I'll be quiet momentarily. I have been supportive of proceeding with this project all along. That remains my position to date. So who would like to speak?
I'll be first. I'm kind of in favor of all of this myself, actually. I'm just questioning the reason for, do we need sleeping quarters in a volunteer department? And I'm not saying we don't. I'm just asking, is there a reason for that? Is there something mandatory down the road here that we are going to be required to have this, or what's the advantage to that? I get the first floor here, plans and stuff for a day room and all that. I get that. I want a place for these guys to, meet and relax a little bit and hang out here and stuff. And I think that's advantageous to the town. If they're here and they get a call, their response time is going to be accelerated dramatically, I believe. But I'm just questioning the sleeping areas. Is that something that we need to do or not need to do, or what's the reason behind that?
I think
Staff's
it
gonna be brought up to speed on it, I guess.
Sure, indeed, and we may let Chief Buchholz or others respond to that. I will just tell you, summarized, I mean, in 2017, the message from the town board that went out to all taxpayers with their tax bills said very simply, an addition for the fire department was approved in the 2018 capital projects. That was just information. The addition includes sleeping quarters, which will help with recruitment of fire and EMT personnel, and this will reduce response times. I'm wondering, maybe Chief Buchholz, would you come up, or anybody else on your staff there, and maybe you could expand on a bit. That's my understanding of the two reasons for the justification for the sleeping quarters.
It is. It's becoming, and everyone has heard this on the news. It's just been on the news the last 2 nights with the situation that occurred in Pleasant Prairie with the death of a citizen, and it took the fire department 8 minutes to respond there. Response times are critical, and ours are doing nothing but growing. If we had our at least an initial response crew here at the station, they could be out the door much quicker. It takes us anywhere from 4 to 10 minutes just to get people here to the station before they even go out on the road. Those numbers really need to be reduced, and the only way to do that is to have people stay here. It also gives us the opportunity to recruit folks that don't live in the area. They could stay here as opposed to living in Brookfield or New Berlin or Milwaukee or Franklin or Oak Creek. I have applications on my desk now from some folks as far away as Madison who'd like to come here and work as paid on-premise people, but they're available only at night, and I don't have a place for them to be here at night. We have brought on some paid on-premise people during the day. That helps out substantially. Our day crew is usually out of the door in a couple of minutes, as opposed to the night crew that could take, like I said, 4 to 10 minutes to leave here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think is referred to the county study, which was done and released last year, my recollection is in terms of average response time, the town of Waukesha, I thought, was at 17.2 minutes, which was second worst in the county. Is that, I don't want to misrepresent something, is that accurate or reasonably accurate?
That's what the report says, but that also takes into account when we go on mutual aid calls where we have extended periods of time to respond to other communities. Those times are also included in there, so it makes those times much longer. Just looking at our in-house times, our response times vary between 10 and 14 minutes.
Okay. But one of the other realities, correct me if I'm wrong, but the town of Waukesha, because it is large geographically, I mean, reasonably compared to some other communities that are more condensed, there will be a limit as to, at some point in time, just because of the geographics of it, how much that response time can be reduced. Is that a fair statement?
Probably true.
Okay. Okay. Did that answer your question or your follow-up?
Yeah, I guess that was my question, is to what's the advantage? And if you answered that, I guess I didn't, is that gonna, how's that gonna affect, I mean, they're paid for being here then, is that correct? Or how does the paid on call thing work then, if that's?
Paid on call folks, we pay them a standby amount of money to stand by for calls, and then they go to their hourly rate when they actually respond on calls. So if they're at home, they get paid $2.50 an hour to be on standby. When they do respond to a call, then it jumps up to their hourly rate.
Okay, so if they're sleeping here, how does that work out then? Are they paid the $2.50 then, or are they going to be paid?
Right, they'd be paid the $2.50 standby.
Okay. Yeah, this answers my questions. I guess my concerns. Just, I mean, I'm not that concerned. I guess I just wanted answers to those questions. They kind of out in the dark. I was in the dark on some of this. Thanks, Dan.
That's the paid on premise folks who are here working, though, get paid their hourly rate to be here on paid on premise while they're here working.
Who else would like to speak?
What's the budgeted amount for this, Mr. Chairman?
The amount that is included in this year's capital plan is $750,000. And I believe that includes in the line item, I think it refers to dormitories, generator, and the service cleanup. Is that correct, Kathy?
That's correct.
That was previously $1,160,000 for 2018 construction. It was reduced to $750,000 in this year's capital plan and capital budget.
And how many sleeping quarters would that, how many people would that sleep?
Well, it's on the drawing there. There's 8 sleep rooms.
And Chief, you're comfortable that you can fill all 8 of those sleep rooms?
I'm not looking to do that immediately, but I felt if we were doing the addition, it would make sense.
Do you want to come up to the microphone just for a minute? We can hear you in the room, but people might not who are live streaming. So the question was, I think, from Supervisor Radke was about the number of sleeping rooms, correct?
Right. We proposed 8. We would initially use at least 4, but if we were doing the addition, it would make sense to do it now rather than try and add rooms later. Departments all around us across the whole country have said they've started out small and they're all putting additions on. McQuantico just went from 4 rooms to 12 rooms. Wales, Genesee, and Town of Delafield both have sleeping quarters. One has 3 rooms, Town of Delafield has 4 rooms, and they both wish they'd at least double them. They have people that want to stay there, and they have no place for them. To start with, we initially want to at least have 3 to 4 people stay here at night. I anticipate that growing quite rapidly based on what we see developing across the state, across the country.
So you're comfortable that you would have 4 people here every night?
Yeah.
Any more questions or comments?
That being said, would it be to save a few bucks in the initial cost, not finish off 4 of those rooms initially and just do 4 to start with, and later on, when money's more available, decide to finish off the other 4 rooms, but put up the main infrastructure? That's where the cost would be if you had to do it later on, I'm sure.
I mean, that's certainly a possibility, and if we get to the point that we hire a design professional or that type of thing, they could give us cost estimates on that. That's certainly a possibility.
I think it gives us something to start out with here. We should start looking at all our options at least. We should start looking at all our options at least.
Any other comments or questions? If not, then if there's nothing more, we'll simply adjourn the committee of the whole meeting for the fire station addition at this point in time, which is 6:46, and we will proceed with the special town plan commission at 7 o'clock. Thank you. Good evening again, and welcome to the town of Waukesha again. This is the second of two meetings tonight on Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, starting here at 7 p.m., and this is a special meeting of the Plan Commission of the town of Waukesha. Typically, the Plan Commission only meets on the first meeting of the month, which is the second Thursday of the month, but we've got a special reason to be here tonight. So we're called to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll stand and join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you call the roll, please, Kathy?
Commissioner White? Here. Commissioner Fuller? Here. Commissioner Webb?
Here.
Supervisor Stigler?
Here.
And Chairman Fisher?
Here. Next item, can you confirm that we have complied with the meeting posting and open meeting law requirements? Is that all in place?
Yes, we have.
Okay, thank you. We will take citizen comments at this point in time. These citizens' comments would be simply on the item on the agenda, which is the ordinance to repeal conditional uses. Is there anybody who would like to address the board at this time under citizen comments? 20 people in the audience and nobody wants to talk, huh? Okay. All right, then we'll move on from there. I'll read the agenda item as such. This is discussion and possible recommendation on ordinance 2019-0-05, an ordinance to repeal section 42-35 entitled, quote, conditional uses, unquote, in the town of Waukesha zoning code, and to repeal multiple subsections in the town of Waukesha zoning code that describe conditional uses. Administrator Nicholas, I think, unless anybody has a different pleasure, Sean, would you maybe just outline what we actually did at the last meeting, why this is before us tonight? And I think Attorney Macy may choose to add to that, or Administrator Nicholas, or anybody, but would you start the topic off, please?
Sure. So last time we discussed the conditional uses within the zoning ordinance in terms of a repeal of them. And the reason it was discussed was because of the changes in the state statutes in terms of Wisconsin Act 67, which basically makes conditional uses permitted uses, provided you can meet the conditions that are outlined in your zoning ordinance or what's established through the review process. And the conditional uses that are in the town of Waukesha's ordinances were written, including the ones that had conditions prior to that statute being added to the Wisconsin state statutes. Most of them are substandard in terms of measuring up or making sure the town's protected for most situations. So the discussion was, and also based on Attorney Macy's correspondence to the town right after that legislation took place, the recommendation to seriously consider revising or repealing the conditional use sections within the ordinance. So the action that was taken last time was a vote in favor by the Plan Commission and the board to repeal all conditional uses at this time.
So tonight we're looking at the specific language which has been put in place. And I want Attorney Macy just jump in a minute if you wouldn't. I think importantly, and Sean alluded to it, you addressed this issue to the Town Plan Commission, Town Board in a letter, I don't remember exact date, but in December of 2017. So that's a year and a half ago, give or take, after Act 67 was put in place. I believe you had another communication in August of last year as well, that you were basically suggesting that we ought to take a close look at that. I'm not intending to put words in your mouth. Will you pick that up from there, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. You've stated it correctly. When the new law came down, we analyzed it. We saw consequences that were occurring to some of our clients and immediately put everybody on notice that they should look at their codes just to make sure that, as your planner has indicated, the community was protected. This is not a criticism or saying you shouldn't have conditional uses or you should, it's that under the new law, you have to put all the requirements and conditions that you want into the law. And they're not there now because that wasn't a requirement of the old law. So I don't want to reiterate everything that was in the letter. Again, I think the planner has indicated in what I would say though is for most communities, they've done this is what they call the first step. And that is they've repealed them all so that they can take a breather and they can study it and decide, how they want to proceed going forward with each of the conditional uses. So I don't know, you may have to budget it. It's right now we don't have a lot of money, I assume, in the budget for rewriting this section of the code, but we'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis as the issues come up and people request conditional use. The planner is prepared to walk them through the procedure if they wish to. For instance, the first person who comes in and wants to do an in-law unit may decide that they're going to request an amendment to the code to make it a permitted accessory use instead of a conditional use, which some communities have done, and we've got good samples out there to help the citizens if they come in. Ultimately, the board and the Plan Commission, but more importantly probably the board, would budget some money next year to rewrite this section and over the time, because there is a cost involved. Tonight we're here to look at the ordinance, and the ordinance specifically goes through each of the sections and repeals them. You did not have an ordinance for your last meeting, so we thought it was important in talking to the administrator that we have an ordinance for the Plan Commission to look at to fully understand the situation, and so we brought it back for that reason in case there's any question. But it's technically does exactly what you adopted at your last meeting, and that it repeals them all and sets the course for the next phase then. Unless there's any questions, that's what I have to report.
Okay, thank you. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are, we looked at this last meeting, 29 conditional uses that are identified in the code. So there's 29 items that would be repealed by this act. Is that correct?
That would be repealed, and then obviously any reference to them in the zoning districts themselves would
Sure.
also be repealed.
And that's what was picked up in the ordinance the way it was drafted. Okay, questions, comments, just even as we get into this, understand, because I know we got new Plan Commission member and that type of thing. The Plan Commission for this matter is a recommending body. This is a recommendation for action to the town board, which will take up the same agenda item shortly. Any questions, discussion? I mean, if and when anybody's prepared, this could be put into the form of a motion. If you're inclined to do that, the motion would largely follow the verbiage in item 6 on the agenda if you're inclined to do that. Everybody on the Plan Commission clear on what this is, or any questions of Planner Malarkey or Attorney Macy, or we all got our heads around this? We need not belabor the issue if someone wants to make a motion. I'm not trying to prompt stuff, but it is a beautiful evening and the Bucks are playing. Hint, hint.
Well, Al gave me the nod over there, so I guess
Did he? All right.
I will make the motion to recommendation on ordinance 2019-0-05, an ordinance to repeal section 42-35 entitled Conditional Uses in the Town of Waukesha zoning code, and to repeal multiple subsections in the Town of Waukesha zoning code that describe conditional uses.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Okay, so the motion was made by Supervisor Stigler, second by Commissioner Fuller. If everybody understands the motion and you're prepared to vote, then we'll call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously with 5 voting in favor. Before we adjourn here, just a quick comment for everybody. The Plan Commission at full strength is comprised of 7 members, the town chairperson by virtue of position, a town supervisor who was elected and was at the past meeting at this point in time is Supervisor Stigler, and then there are 5 citizen members of that, so Commissioners White, Fuller, and Webb are 3 of the 5. An appointment we're looking at tonight for an individual, if that's confirmed, would fill the 4th spot on the Plan Commission. And just by way of a notification, Bob Flanagan, one of the Plan Commission members, is not here tonight. We were actually passing a card around the table here. He's going to have back surgery, I think Friday of next week. So we want to wish him well. So we're signing the get well card about 8 days ahead, and we'll get that in the mail. He's expecting a couple of weeks of recuperation, so we will probably be missing him for the better part of a month. So we want to wish him well. All right, unless there's anything more, we would entertain a motion for adjournment of the Special Plan Commission meeting at this time.
I'll motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second? Okay, motion made by Commissioner Webb, seconded by Commissioner White to adjourn. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so that unanimously passes. That was short and quick. If everybody would kind of keep to their seats, the Plan Commission meeting is over, but the rest of the town board members will come up. People who are only on the Plan Commission member can be excused. Thank you for your service, and we'll continue with the town board meeting. Okay, thank you. Carrying on then, again, May 23rd, 2019, at about 7:14 here, we will now proceed with the regularly scheduled town board meeting. So we are called to order. We do have on the agenda the Pledge of Allegiance. I think we'll dispense with that unless anybody thinks we absolutely need to do that. I think pretty much everybody was in the room when we did that. Any objection to moving along without that? Okay, then we'll move to that. Then we do need a roll call, please.
Chairman Fisher,
Here.
Supervisor Radke,
Here.
Supervisor German, Supervisor Durr,
Here.
Supervisor Stigler.
Here. Okay, thank you. And can you confirm, please, that the meeting was properly posted to comply with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, citizen comments at this point in time. 2 items on the agenda. Anybody like to address the board? 3 minutes, microphone is open, and you are invited to come and speak. Kind of looks like the same response from the Plan Commission meeting. Okay, then we'll move ahead from there. We've got a series of reports tonight. First report, Administrator Clerk Treasurer Nicholas, please.
The Towns Association meeting was here last month. They spoke on cybersecurity. A review of our insurance was shown that we do have cyber insurance for the town, just in case our systems are attacked. I met and reviewed with all our ongoing concerns with Gordon Flesh, reviewed and updated policies with our IT vendors to make sure that we have the ability to update their software so to keep cyber attacks from happening. I placed a note in the 2020 budget as an item to discuss to hire a company like Taylor Computers to check our cybersecurity weaknesses. You had me work with the company, the attorney Ann Wall, that was working on the annexation on the 2 properties at the corner of Sunset and 59. We've spoken to the state, and the inclusion of our roads can be made by the petitioner. I'm waiting for a contact to see what the final map looks like. Met with the Village of Big Bend president to review his loss of personnel in his clerk treasurer's office. Ordered the canvas for the awnings that are in disrepair, the windows in the town hall and the employee door. The total cost of that was $2,721, which is in the budget, and it will be taken out of line item 53,335, repairs and maintenance. We expect to see them installed in June, at the end of June. In front of you today, you are going to be looking at a resolution. The State Employee Trust Fund has updated their employer health insurance manual, which includes the contract information. That is going to require us, or require the board to complete a resolution and return it because our current resolution is no longer correct. We had a pre-construction meeting with Payne and Dolan. Supervisors German and Durr were present. I want to make everyone aware that the tentative timeline is July and should be ended someplace the first part of August. As a reminder, we're having Hazelwood, Riverview, and Getz Drive pulverized and repaved, as well as millwork done on Crest and Lois. You have in front of you a report on the Big Bend Bridge, 6750. I've requested the town engineer to do an inspection on the bridge, this bridge was built in 1937. Our annual bridge inspection report showed it needed work. The state has a bridge rehab grant, and I've reviewed that, and our bridge does qualify for that grant. I have received some estimates on what a bridge report, which is our first step in getting closer to that grant. It would be about around $5,000. Before I'm bringing it to the board, I'm currently working on the analysis of the costs of applying and accepting the grant and the work that's required when we accept the grant versus the cost of just making the repairs within our budget. And I'll bring that back to the board for discussion. Currently, we are reviewing paper products to find ways to cut our costs, starting to review the employee handbook and org chart to bring back to the board for approval. We've started on job descriptions. We're starting to upgrade the website to make it ADA friendlier and allow credit card payments. For the treasurer's report, we have in our general fund revenue $1,633,000 and some change. And in our general fund expenditures at this point, we're at $1,500,314. The fire inspection revenues, we have transferred, we've applied fund balance of $20,000 as we're still waiting for our fire dues to come in. And our expenditures on fire inspection is $5,415. Our capital fund revenues are $461,300, and our capital fund expenditures were $30,487. We had 2 public records requests for the clerk's report. We have the Smart Procure asked for a list of all our vendors. That request is complete. American Transparency has asked for an electronic copy of all our employees and information on their pay and such from 2000 through 2018. A response has been sent. In front of you, you have a list of non-compliant properties. We have 9 non-compliant properties at this point on the report. 3 are in court, 2 are closed, 2 are in extended time, and 2 are in their first 30 days. We're working on the renewal of liquor licenses and operator licenses, and that will come forward at the June 13th meeting. The Senate and Assembly bill that we've been working on for the last 3 years to allow voters to place their ballot in the right in the election machine during in-office absentee is actually getting a public hearing next week, Wednesday. I've sat down and met with the legislators, the League, Wisconsin Counties Association, the county clerks to get this thing moving. This is the same bill that the board had passed a resolution in 2017 in support of. That's my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments, questions of Kathy on her report? If not, we'll move along. The next item on the agenda is the DPW report. I don't see Jerry Noli here tonight. This is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but those of you who were at the annual meeting, Jerry gave his report. He claimed to be a bit shy, but he was the hero of the night when he gave his report. So I don't know if he's just living on fame tonight or watching on YouTube. He's not here, but we got a written report. Mike, do you want to pick up on that, or Kathy, or anybody, or is just accept the written report the way it's presented?
I think you could accept it the way it's written.
Okay. For anybody who wants to see that, I mean, the outlines May work, which is ongoing, largely completed, and what's planned for June. All right, Fire Department report. Is that you, Chief Buchholz?
April, we responded to 32 ambulance requests, 3 motor vehicle accidents, 15 fire responses. Mutual aid was given 8 times, and mutual aid was received 14 times. 10 of those times was our paramedic shared program with Vernon. 2 members left the department in April. We have currently 32 active members, 2 people on leave of absence, 1 secretary treasurer, and 3 high school cadets. 2 of those high school cadets have applied for membership. When they graduate here in June, they have Fire 1 and EMT Basic certifications already, so that's a real plus for us. 2 fire prevention programs were held in April, Rose Glen School and Prairie School, and the 2019 fire inspections continue.
Thank you. Any questions of Chief Buchholz? Any comments, questions? Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you very much. Item 6D, Sheriff's Department report. I'm going to assume that Deputy Moose is going to give that report. Is that a good assumption?
It is.
Welcome. Proceed.
All right, in April, we had 56 calls for service. Of those, 3 911 hang-up calls, 10 fire and EMS calls, 2 alarms, 67 building checks, 21 either citations, parking citations, or warnings were given, 4 property damage accidents, and 22 other traffic offenses, a harassment complaint, and a few other calls for service.
Thank you very much. So the town's in good hands. Any questions? That's always good. Exit the microphone quick before anybody can answer a question, right?
Come back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, item 6E, moved it very quickly, is entitled Report on Measurements of Static Levels of Water in Some Private Wells in the Town of Waukesha. I asked this to be put on the agenda, just a real quick little bit of history on that, since I think about 2008, in about 24, give or take, private wells in the town of Waukesha, mostly in the southwestern part of the town. We've been monitoring the static, have a company monitoring the static water levels in those wells, looking for changes. This was precipitated by concerns when the city of Waukesha was looking for the alternative water source before they secured that from Lake Michigan. So there were concerns about them putting high-capacity shallow aquifer wells down towards the Vernon Marsh and what impact that would have. So this was to build a foundational base of data for that. You've got an expansive spreadsheet on that I think that goes back to 2008. I mean, any questions or comments on that? I mean, just 2 things quickly. If you look at that over time, my assessment of that, we've had professionals look at it. There's some variations or fluctuation in that. I think some of them are fairly minor. They're largely seasonal or precipitation related. Just a final comment, it's not on the agenda for tonight, but the previous board had entered into some discussion about whether we would continue this program and for how long. We've been on a rhythm here of doing them twice a year, typically in April and October or thereabouts. That's not for discussion for tonight, so something you'd think about, and that's just a little bit of additional information for new board members. So any questions about the well monitoring report or comments? Okay, then we'll move along from there. Item 7 is the minutes of April 25th, 2019 meeting. I believe, Kathy, all board members were present for that. So any comments on that or action on the minutes?
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes of April 25th, 2019.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, moved by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor German to approve the minutes of April 25, 2019. As published, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Those are approved unanimously. Item 8 is entitled Business. Item 8A is discussion and possible action on ordinance 2019-0-05, an ordinance to repeal section 42-35 entitled Conditional Uses in the Town of Waukesha zoning code and to repeal multiple subsections in the Town of Waukesha zoning code that describe conditional uses. Administrator Nicholas, I think that agenda item is exactly as it appeared in the Plan Commission meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And again, this is the action that the Town Plan Commission, or the item they considered about 15 or 20 minutes ago, their recommendation was for approval. So discussion at the town board level or action.
I'd like to make a motion to approve well, actually take the recommendation of the planning commission. I'd like to make a motion to take.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
Is there a second to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission for approval?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion was made by Supervisor German, second by Supervisor Stigler to accept the recommendation of the Plan Commission to approve ordinance 2019-0-5. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, so if I understand this, it means that all of our conditional uses will go away, and there's no time frame to bring any of them back? Is that correct?
Respond?
If you're speaking to the language in the zoning code, yes, there's no provision for conditional uses in the zoning code, and we have received as staff no direction to write the new ones and bring them back. But the conditional uses that people currently hold, and that's why I wanted to answer the question, do not go away. And all the rights that they have, prior to today, they still continue to have as conditional use holders.
Understood.
You said it in a way that could be interpreted two ways, Mr. Radke, I just wanted to clarify that when we say they go away, the existing CUs don't go away, but the provision for getting new CUs does go away. You're correct.
And is regard, to the question of timing, anybody could come back and make a request at any point in time. Not correct to basically put conditional use back in or new permissible use. In terms of the timing part of it, that could happen as early as the next meeting. Is that not true?
That is correct. It's just
Okay.
merely filing an application and presenting the language that
Okay.
you wish. They have the right to make a text. Any citizen has the right, or property holder, I have to look at the code, to request a text amendment to the code.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Jim? Okay.
What is the cost to make that request to the board?
A text change? Text change is $50.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Plus professional fees.
Okay. If not, then since you're ready to vote, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Absolutely.
Right, I just want to make sure you're clear that although you passed it, it's, the CUs are still in until the county approves them. So the reason we had the special meeting of the Plan Commission was so we could get the information to the county in time for them to get it through their process. They have 3 meetings to get through, so this will be on the county board floor for the final vote on July 23rd.
Thank you for that information. Item 8B is discussion possible action to authorize Chairman Fisher to solicit information, proposals, et cetera, from electrical engineers and We Energies, parens incoming overhead electrical services and emergency generator, close parens. That's the agenda item. This was the subject of discussion at the half-hour-long meeting of the Committee of the Whole on May 9th, where we discussed this at some considerable length. We can continue discussion tonight. I think we aired that out fairly well. If you want further discussion, that would be fine. If somebody wants to put a motion in place, that would be fine as well.
I would move to authorize the Chairman Fisher to solicit information, proposals, et cetera, from electrical engineers and We Energies about incoming overhead electrical service and emergency generator.
Motion is made. Would anyone care to second the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Further discussion?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that came out at our last meeting of the whole in regards to this was the cost savings in regards to consolidating meters. I noticed on the electric bill that's back there on the desk that the cost for an electric meter, an extra one per month, is $5.54.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions? Further discussion? If not, sensing that you're prepared to vote, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, I would indicate that the vote reflected 4 ayes and 1 no, with Supervisor Radke voting no. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. Item C8C then is discussion and possible action for conceptual approval of partial preliminary floor plans dated November 2nd, 2017, parens addition to the fire station, close parens. Again, this was that which we were topically talking about at the Committee of the Whole meeting an hour ago, and I think, Sean, you're going to pull that back up there for us, or can you?
I am.
So what we're talking about is that drawing which is in your packet and is on the screen, and again, importantly, this is conceptual approval, and it is for partial preliminary floor plans. These don't reflect some things that were discussed in terms of extending a bay, modification to an entrance, and so forth. So the important words there, conceptual and partial. I'll just make a comment. This is a little bit of a forerunner to item 8D, which will be up for consideration if there's consensus to want to look to moving this project ahead, and if we're looking for any kind of professional help or what or not, we've kind of got to at least to fix the conceptual scope of the project. So discussion or any kind of action or motion on item 8C.
Being new to the board, I'd like to hear what Mr. Radke and Mr. Dord have to say about the fire department also, a little bit. I thought this was a discussion.
Our code calls for a motion and a second before there's discussion and debate.
Well, our code does not call for that. That's a parliamentary procedure that's at the discussion or discretion of the town chair. The practice that we had in the past is of requiring somebody to make a motion and second it in order to discuss it is not an appropriate way to proceed. I mean, that said, if you choose not to talk at this point in time, I mean, that's clearly your prerogative. If you prefer to have somebody put a motion on the floor, that's your choice.
Just for clarification, I respectfully disagree. I think our code very clearly indicates that a motion be on the floor before discussion and debate take place.
Well, we're not going to get into a you know what kind of a match about that tonight, but on many items, we share information. We're not going to get deep into a debate or a discussion without a motion on the floor, but in terms of disseminating information, I mean, most of the items that we deal with on the Plan Commission agenda and Town Board agenda, typically it's a dissemination of information before we get deep into a discussion. So respectfully, that's not going to be the order of the day going forward, that nobody can speak about anything without a motion on the floor.
So just so we're clear, we're not gonna follow our own town ordinance, section 2.58, on motions and voting for the town board? I'm not a member of the Plan Commission, so.
Well, again, we'll take that up another night. Would somebody like to make a motion so we can move forward with discussion?
Not so move.
Okay, would anybody like to second the motion?
I'll second it.
What is the motion?
The motion, as I understand it, is for conceptual approval of the partial preliminary floor plans dated November 2nd, 2017 for the addition of fire station. Is that the motion?
Yes, that is.
Okay, so that motion's been made and seconded. Now, if anybody would like to discuss, debate, deliberate, offer questions, now's the time to do it. Okay, I'll sense then you're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion that was made by Supervisor Stigler and seconded by Supervisor German indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that, did everybody vote on that? I'm assuming that passed unanimously. Okay. Then we'll move to item 8D, which is discussion and possible action to authorize Chairman Fisher to solicit proposals from architectural and engineering firms for the addition to the fire station. Someone care to make a motion with regard to that agenda item?
I will move to authorize Chairman Fisher to solicit proposals from architectural and or engineering firms for the addition to the fire station.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, the motion was made by Supervisor Stigler, seconded by Supervisor German to authorize Chairman Fisher to solicit proposals from architectural and or engineering firms for the addition to the fire station. Is there any further discussion?
Just to be clear, what we're asking for is you to negotiate this exact drawing that's up here on the screen. Is that correct?
No, what it is to solicit proposals from architectural and engineering firms for that conceptually approved partial preliminary floor plan. And again, the important words on that are conceptual and preliminary, but we're not able to get any proposals from anybody that'll make any sense unless we have, to a certain degree, affixed the scope of the project, which is reflected in that drawing. I mean, I would full well anticipate if this motion passes and we move ahead with this process and go from conceptual and partial preliminary plans, we would go to more fully developed preliminary plans. My vision of this, if this moves ahead, those would be brought each step of the way to town board for approval or disapproval, changes to them. Then there would be what are called design development drawings, which would be a next step. And ultimately, if we keep going on that, there would be final bidding and construction documents. And I think the appropriate way to do that is to have the town board weigh in at every step of the way, whether they approve or disapprove. It's a kind of refinement process. So does that help at all?
I just needed clarification because it's pretty vague.
Okay, did I clarify it sufficiently for you?
I have no more questions.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments? Then I sense you're ready to vote. If you understand the motion on the floor, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that motion passed unanimously. Item 8E, a discussion, possible action on an environmental corridor determination request for Anthony, and I'm going to try it, Fetterspill, property location S40W22660, Summer Summers Hill Drive Tax Key, WAKT 13909999007. Is the petitioner present in the audience? Okay, if you would, there may be questions for you. Just come on up and grab a seat for the minute in the front row there, if you would. Did I get close to your name or not?
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay. Planner Malarkey, you're going to lead the discussion on this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the petitioner, on behalf of the property owner, is requesting to construct a new single-family home on the parcel that's shown on the overhead. This particular parcel, in conjunction with the rest of the surrounding parcels, are completely within the environmental corridor. The environmental corridor is a boundary established by the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission to protect such things as woodlands, steep slopes, wetlands, etc. This particular development was done in the 90s, 1995, via 3 different CSMs. And you can see that 7 of the 9 lots are already built upon. And so this would be one of the remaining couple of lots. The CSMs that were divided were done prior to our current environmental corridor overlay restriction. So the property is actually zoned RE, which is single-family residential estate, but it has an overlay over the top of it that designates it as an environmental corridor. And so normally, lots in the corridor need to be at least 5 acres in size. This one is 3.63 acres, but again, it was established prior to those restrictions. And so also what needs to happen in the corridor is that if you're going to put a home, it needs to either be, if your lot's partially within and partially without, you have to locate it outside of it. Otherwise, there needs to be a building envelope established either through the subdivision plat, through certified survey map, or through a deed restriction. And the lots that were divided here on these properties, the CSMs do not denote building envelopes. And so the petitioner is requesting now to establish a building envelope as part of the lot. He's presented a platted survey and also a tree survey for the property, because what basically is being preserved here, or what the intent of the corridor is, the trees in the wooded area. And so here's the platted survey that shows the proposed dwelling, the driveway, the proposed septic area, et cetera, and then the grading that goes along with it. And there's a building envelope that's established here along the perimeter, this dashed line that you'll see in your packet. All the trees within the disturbed area or proposed disturbed area are denoted. I talked to Waukesha County about this. I'm not an arborist or an expert on trees or corridors, and I try to figure out what they use for determining what trees are worth saving, and they provided me with a list of priority trees, all 12 inches or more in diameter. You have the list in your packet. The petitioner has outlined which trees are potentially going to be impacted. I'd note that there's 22 white oaks, 14 sugar maple, 14 red oak, 4 elms, and 1 Kentucky coffee. All priority trees potentially worth saving, according to Waukesha County, that may be impacted as part of the home, the grading, the septic system. So I asked then that the board should determine if the proposed area disturbance and associated trees to be removed is acceptable. The board may also determine that some or all the trees would need to be replaced on the property, but is not required to do so. If the board chooses to approve the building envelope that's established as part of this platted survey, some of my conditions include the fact that the residents in the home would need to comply with the environmental corridor overlay district, the residential estate district. The petitioner would record a deed restriction of the property in the form approved by the town attorney, establishing the building envelope as presented today. And then environmental corridors restrictions would also be added that would not allow grading, filling, or removal of topsoil or other materials unless specifically authorized by the town in that building envelope. The removal of destruction of any vegetative cover, with the exception of dead, diseased, dying, or invasive vegetation, may be removed at the discretion of the landowner with the approval from the town of Waukesha, and that the introduction of plant material not indigenous to the existing environment would be prohibited, and new buildings cannot be constructed outside of the building envelope as well. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Maybe before we dive in further, Mr. Federspiel, if you want to come up to the microphone there, and a quick thing or two, you can give us your name and address. Do I understand correctly? You're the petitioner, but not the homeowner. Is that correct? or not?
I'm Anthony Federspiel with Anthony Thomas Builders.
Okay.
Here representing the homeowner. So.
Okay, and why don't you just introduce the homeowner then as well?
This is Brett Klizwiski.
Okay. Okay, and just tell us so we've got clarification, or maybe Kathy or somebody knows, who is Anthony Federspiel then?
I'm the owner of Anthony Thomas Builders.
Okay.
We're a local home builder.
I understand. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Anything that you would like to add or correct to the presentation? Anything you'd want to share with us? We may ask you to engage in the conversation in a bit, but anything at this time that you want to share?
We took quite a bit of time with the surveyor and an arborist to go through to trying to find a spot for the house that makes sense to the properties next to each other. That the lot is the same, pretty much the same from top to bottom. Moving one way, we end up taking out one tree. Moving another way, we take out a different tree. Moving it forward, it was very difficult to try to find an area that made sense. The town engineer asked if we could try to delineate an area, and the only way to really delineate an area is with straight lines. The area that we're delineating is an area that we would be allowed to remove trees. The homeowner's trying to save as many trees as we can, so the intent is not to say we're gonna remove all those trees in that area, but some of them we will have to, given obviously the house, the driveway, the septic. But there's other areas when the grading happens, we may be able to save some of them, and we will, but it's difficult to try to go around, do we come in here and then it gets a little nuts, trying to delineate an area. So they asked for us to come up with an area that could be delineated, that we could say that area inside of there, trees can be removed, but we would attempt to save as many as we could. Okay?
Okay, thank you. I think then we'll open it up to questions or comments from anybody on the town board at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the environmental quarter determination for the request for the building envelope located at S40W22660 Summer Hills Drive.
Okay, thank you. And just even before I have a second clarification, I think Planner Malarkey has just a couple of comments in your staff report. Do you, would that embody those, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
And specifically, his request was also whether the trees needed to be replaced, and that is excluded specifically from my motion.
Okay. Is there a second to Supervisor Dorr's motion?
I'll second.
Okay, motion is made by Supervisor Dorr, second by Supervisor Radke. Further discussion? Okay, if nobody has anything more, we won't belabor it. Sean, would you just real quickly run through, and Supervisor Durr incorporated those, but the conditions that you recommended for the approval?
Sure, just very simply to comply with the zoning district and the overlay district, to record a deed restriction of the property, that no disturbance would happen outside of the building envelope as established in the plat of survey, and then some environmental corridor restrictions that would prohibit grading and introduction of plant materials, construction of buildings outside of that building envelope.
And I guess last, before we go ahead and vote on that, Mr. Federspiel, you understand the motion that's in place at this point in time and the conditions that the planner suggested?
Yes.
Any exceptions to take to those?
No.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Then if you're ready to vote and understand the motion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Item 8F on the agenda, thank you, sir. Item 8F is the discussion of possible action on an environmental corridor determination request for Justin, I'm pressing my luck, but Cutella, property location, lot 24, Tansdale Road, tax KWAKT 139295 7, Mr. Cutella here. Tell me how close I got.
That was perfect.
All right.
On the money.
Okay. Thank you. You want to just stop right there, huh? Okay. Planner Malarkey, you want to do, we'll, as we did with the previous item, we'll give you a chance in a minute to introduce yourself, present, but you want to do the presentation, please?
Sure, and so very interestingly, this is almost the exact same thing as the previous one. I had not seen one of these before, but we got two of them right at the same time. And it's my understanding that the petitioner in this case does not own the property yet, who's considering purchasing the property, but before he does so, wants to get approval on a building envelope in this case. So the only difference here, this property was divided from the property to the east in 1968. This one is actually called a natural resource area, isolated natural resource area, not an environmental corridor, due to the size of the area, the way that Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission classifies these. But it doesn't matter in terms of our ordinance because our environmental corridor overlay district applies equally to primary, secondary corridors, and isolated natural resource areas. So it's a very similar situation here. This property is completely within the isolated natural resource area. The petitioner has provided a plat of survey showing the proposed dwelling, the driveway, and the grading along the house. The platted survey does not show the proposed septic system. I did get that after the fact in the last couple of days. That's near the rear of the property. There was a tree survey done with this one as well. The tree survey didn't include the entire property, and in fact, it didn't include all of the areas that are shown here to be graded or the septic system area. That was done a while back. The new platted survey was done recently. The tree survey that was done did show the trees, and in comparison to the priority trees, there really isn't anything in terms of priority trees, at least in the area that was surveyed. I don't know about the rest of the property, but I would imagine the quality of the trees on this site are not anything compared to what was in the previous proposal that was just done based on what was surveyed at the front of the property. In addition, Town Engineer Chris Gianelli has taken a look at the grading plan for this particular site and has said it does look okay in terms of a potential layout. So what they're proposing in terms of grading would be about the extent of it. The issue with this one is that, I don't know if there was miscommunication or not, but the platted survey that we just received on Monday does not include a boundary or a maximum building envelope associated with this. So we can go one of two ways if the board would choose to approve something here is, one, approve a building envelope subject to staff approval based on the grading plan and the house location, the driveway location, and the septic system as presented tonight. We would work out the details, make sure that gets into a deed restriction with the same conditions that were set forth on the previous example, or give a potential conceptual approval tonight pending a building envelope would come forward, because it's my understanding that the decision that the potential buyer needs to make is fast approaching.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to come up, Mr. Cutella, and give us your name and current address, and then speak to any of those issues, please?
Yeah, my name's Justin Catella. I live in Cudahy right now, 3850 East Pulaski Avenue. I work for West Dallas Fire Department, and my wife and I are expecting, we're living with my parents right now, so right now we're looking to get things going on this this lot here. Our deadline is June 13th with everything here, so we're trying to move as quickly as we can. I'm not a home builder, so my home builder couldn't be here tonight to represent me, but yeah, so with the septic layout, that's what we have for you guys tonight. The grading and everything they said would be dependent on septic and those type of things. So this is kind of what I have for you guys tonight.
Yeah, just for clarification, you can see the proposed septic system back here. So it's fairly far removed from the house. The impact to, in totality of the isolated natural resource area is going to be fairly vast on this one, but again, the tree species that were at least identified in the northern half are not some of the priority trees that you'd be looking to save.
Just one quick question. We get that drawing up there. Just scoot to the bottom of it a little bit. This may be a small issue item at this point in time, but it looks like that, is that septic system almost abutting the property line there? Is that what I'm saying there? Or that's simply identified as a proposed area? Because I think there's a code required offset from the property line for the septic system.
Yeah, and this
I mean,
is.
that's a small item.
Absolutely, and this has not been approved by the county in terms of the septic system yet, so that would be ironed out as part of that process.
Understood. Okay. Anything else that you would like to add to the presentation, or any questions of Planner Malarkey or Mr. Catella with regard to his request?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
Sean, is there a requirement that the disturbed areas be contiguous, or can it be can it be separated? Could the septic be, I mean, the board, if they're going to approve it tonight and not required to come back with detail, which was one of the options, is going to have to give really specific direction to Sean as to what he can include or not include in the area. Because he said there's no map, like the last one had a very specific map, and you saw exactly where they were asking for disturbance. We don't have that from him, so my question to you is, could the septic and the house be separate allowed disturbed areas?
Yes, I believe they could.
Okay. Thank you. Good point. Other questions, comments?
Sean, is the septic set back that far for a reason? Has a perk test been done or anything like that on the lot already? Or, I mean, it seems like we got a long stretch between the house, proposed house, and the septic. Is there a way to condense that? Maybe then it wouldn't.
That's a good question. I have not. There has been tests done. I have not reviewed those. Maybe the applicant can speak to that.
I just know there's been a perk test done on the front half of the lot so far. I'm not sure if the septic was included in that or not at this point.
Yeah. So it looks like there's a boring here by the home, and then there's 3 borings here by the proposed mound system. It doesn't look like there was anything done closer to the home, and I don't know why or why not that may be the case.
Well, I'm just looking at, we got an awful lot of trees between the mound system and the house. Is it the time to service the mound system, and maybe we're gonna be destroying more trees again, or how's that gonna work? I mean, even installing it, you're gonna be intruding upon environmental corridor. I mean, if you move the mound system closer to the house, you're gonna minimize that.
Yeah, and it looks like the soils are the same throughout the property, so it's not really necessarily a soil issue. One way to approach it might be is to, if you were to approve it based on staff reviewing and revising, we certainly could talk to your geotechnical engineer to see if there's anything at all we could do to move it closer to the house, if it's possible.
So we can move that along. I mean, it would just appear to me that there might be as many as 4 or 5 different actions that the town board could take on that. One would simply be approval with no conditions, denial with no conditions, table the matter for further consideration, approve it with conditions that trust Planner Malarkey to follow through on the details we've talked about, or approve it conceptually and come back here. It would seem to me like any of those things would be viable ways to move forward. Or any of those out of the box completely, Sean?
No, that sounds about right.
Okay.
Does he have a request for what part of the lot he wishes to have permission to disturb?
No, I think in essence the request is, he wants to be able to disturb what's shown here for grading the home, the driveway, and the septic system. And so that's what I'd be working towards defining, is that boundary in a neat box, basically, without getting too, wavy lines.
Simply said, it doesn't have real clear definition at this point in time. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, I'd be willing to support what he just said about condensing it into a box and giving Sean the ability rather to go ahead and do that, and I would approve it on those circumstances.
So you'd be comfortable in trusting that to Sean to carry the ball forward?
Yes, at this
is that-
point, I believe I would, yes.
Okay, do you want to put that into the form of a motion, or did you just do
I
that?
kind of thought I did, but if you want it refined, I guess you can do that somehow, but I would move to allow Planner Malarkey to go ahead and come up with the best scenario as to the least amount of disturbance on the lot. And
Okay, so it's for approval and entrusting him to do that. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay,
We have
motion is,
to add subject to his standard
My,
conditions.
the rest of the conditions in my staff report as well.
why don't you just run through those? Is it understood or implied that, and let him run through the conditions? That's
Yes,
part of
it
the
is.
motion, the second.
Yes.
Why don't you just enumerate those?
Yeah,
please?
and so these are the same conditions as the previous, except, and so I also have expounded on the thing that was just touched on, and so that a deed restriction would be recorded on the property in a form approved by the town attorney, establishing a building envelope based on what's presented today, except as otherwise modified herein and reviewed and approved by town staff, which would be me, that the isolated natural resource restrictions for land outside of the permitted disturbance envelope prohibits the grading, filling, removal of vegetative cover, introduction of plant material not indigenous to the existing environment, and the construction of buildings.
Okay, so back to Mr. Catella then. I mean, do you understand, we get to vote, but understand the motion that's on the floor and the conditions to it and what the expectations and requirements of you would be going forward if this passes? Do you understand that clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then is there any further discussion on the motion? Everybody understands the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, sir.
The only thing I would add is that if they cannot reach agreement, he has to come back to the board. Just so he knows that. He has to.
Fair enough.
He has to accept what Planner Malarkey says, and if you or your builder can't live with that box, then you have to come back and appeal that decision to the board.
Okay, that clearly understood by everybody? Okay, thank you. Then item 8G is discussion and possible action on an existing employer update resolution, Wisconsin Public Employers Group Health Insurance Program Administrator Nicholas, what is this all about, please?
All right, as I mentioned in my report earlier, the state trust fund, EFT, has redone their manual for their health insurance. We hold that health insurance, and they are requesting all their municipalities or contract holders to renew their resolution, because our current resolution is no longer correct with the changes they made in their manual.
Okay, any questions about that item? Seems fairly straightforward. Would someone like to make a motion?
Clerk Nicholas, this is identical to what was done last year, correct?
Correct.
I'll make a motion that we adopt it.
Is there a second motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor Stigler to adopt the updated resolution. All in favor, or is there further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Item 8H, discussion possible action on an extension request made by David Fry for non-compliant property located at S22W 25551 Harris Highland Drive. This is noticed to Administrator Nicholas. Mr. Fry, you're in the audience, are you? Are you able to come forward or not? Thank you.
So David Fry received a noncompliance 30-day notice that was sent on April 29th. He responded very quickly to our inspector, to the letter, and has some extenuating circumstances that will not allow him to act within that 30 days. He's requesting a 30 to 45 days and may change that. That's what I got.
Okay, do you have anything that you would like to share with us beyond that?
No, but 45 to 60 would probably be better the way I'm going. I broke my hip on
Okay.
Easter Sunday, and it's slow going. But I want to thank the response team, 911. They did a great call, get in there.
We're glad to hear that. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, I mean, I'll correct it, I'll go in compliance, I mean, this hose was there from the day I built the house, I mean, bought the house in 2013, the house was built in '05, I'm taking it though, the line was there that whole time, but neighbor says it's not in compliance, so
Okay.
I'll comply, but I just need time to get healthy.
If we were to go out 60 days, just what if, do we know what date that would be? That would be,
July
second
20.
meeting in July?
July 25th.
We'll probably work to specific dates. Would there be support from the board for that, or do you have any questions of Mr. Fry?
I'll make a motion to grant an extension to July 25th, 2019.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Durr, seconded by Supervisor Radke to grant Mr. Fry an extension to July 25th, 2019. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. The very best to you in your recovery and recuperation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And like I said, hats off to the fire department.
All right, well, we'll,
That's the second time I needed them, and
Yeah.
one was at 3:30 in the morning, the other one was at 10:30 at night, and they got there within 10 minutes.
we appreciate it, but they might be looking for raises, so let's just kind of cut it off right there, okay? Thank you. All right, next item, longest item on the agenda, I'll try to read it in, it's 8I. Discussion, possible action to make a change to the current full-time firefighter slash EMT slash inspector position by adding the responsibilities of lieutenant and change the title to firefighter slash EMT dash P slash inspector. This change would reduce the number of on-call lieutenant positions from 4 to 5, and updated job description will be on a future town board meeting. And this is indicated that Administrator Nicholas and Chief Buchholz would speak to this issue. Chief, you want to come back up, please? And either you or Kathy, do you want to take this away, or
So,
Kathy, whatever?
So when Dan brought this request to me, I did some quick research, checked our town board minutes to see when the title was changed from firefighter EMT inspector to firefighter EMTP inspector, and I did not find it. And so with this request, I added the title change, so we had that properly worded.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to speak to this, please?
This is a request that the chief officers have discussed for several years, and we felt that this is a move to assist in the growing of the fire department. Run volumes have increased, workload has increased. We're asking to do this so that we have a consistent line officer during the day. Currently, we have an evening officer who may be available during the day or may not be, which leaves the chief to be the line officer, which oftentimes does not allow him to be a command officer then. So it would give us consistency to have a daytime line officer. It provides an officer in quarters when I may be off at a meeting or out of town or for whatever reason I might not be in. It's to help maintain some consistency with our training program and our operations during the day and night to help coordinate that together better. This person will be able to assist with officer duties that can only be accomplished during the day. For instance, when things have to be purchased or have to be repaired or something, and those only contacts can be made during the day. Rather than in the evening, it makes that a little more affordable to us. It also could provide an incentive for a stepping stone. Eventually, maybe that person may move into the chief's position someday, or give the town board an opportunity to at least look at some kind of a promotion system within the department to move those people forward. All the current credentials would stay in place that are required now. With the addition of the Officer 1 certification will be a requirement.
Okay, thank you. I have a question, and others might have a question as well, but this is on the agenda for the town board meeting tonight, and maybe either you or Attorney Macy or Administrator Clerk Treasurer Nicholas can answer it, but is it correct to assume that the town has the authority to make this change? This doesn't need concurrence or weigh-in or anything by the Fire Commission. Is that a correct assumption?
I have not looked at it. Let me pull it up and see.
Okay.
It may take concurrence.
Okay. Well, while he's taking a peek at that, or we can even move to another agenda item. I didn't mean to catch you off guard on that, but I mean, any other questions aside from that at the moment? Does anyone mind, just in terms of trying to move things along, can we move to the next agenda item and come back to that? Well, I didn't think there were. Anybody else have any questions on it, other than the one I posed?
So this is a change in the job duties, not specific to a person?
Correct.
Any other questions? Does anybody mind if we move on and come back to this and give Attorney Macy time to take a look at it? Is that acceptable to everybody? Okay, then we'll go to item 8J on the agenda, which is a Fire Commission appointment. This is an appointment by the town board, and I have recommended the appointment of Tyler Adair to the Fire Commission for a 5-year term ending on April 30th, 2024. I know Tyler's here. Why don't you even come on forward? And Tyler submitted some information in writing, which should be in your packets. So if any questions of him, having had reviewed the information, welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for sitting in on this lengthy meeting.
Thank you for the invite.
Any questions or anything of Tyler? Then a motion to confirm his appointment to the Fire Commission for a 5-year term ending April 30th, 2024 would be in order at this time.
I guess I have one question, Mr. Chairman. If I may, I guess it's becoming increasingly necessary to ask this question, but are you committed to enforcing all the state statutes and local town ordinances as it would pertain to your Fire Commission duties?
Well, I would follow whatever law is written, yes.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Someone prepared to offer a motion to accept the appointment?
I would move to accept the appointment of Tyler Adair to the Fire Commission.
Is there a second motion?
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Stigler, second by Supervisor Radke, to accept the appointment to the Fire Commission of Tyler Adair for a 5-year term ending April 30th, 2024. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Just one more quick discussion, if I may.
Sure.
This is replacing the position of Commissioner Webb?
It
that
is.
right?
That's correct.
And Commissioner Webb was not interested in pursuing an additional term?
This is to replace Commissioner Webb.
So we don't know if he was interested or not?
That's true.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Are you prepared to vote? Then all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, and thank you for offering your service to town of Waukesha. We deeply appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next is item 8K, Plan Commission appointment. The appointment was made previously but not confirmed, so this would be to confirm, for the town board to confirm the appointment of Mary Cisney to the Plan Commission for a 1-year term ending April 30th, 2020. And the reason that it was decided by the board requires confirmation, even though it's a 1-year term. It's filling out the balance of Supervisor Stigler's term as a citizen member on the Plan Commission. And again, I think we pointed out at a previous meeting, we've got some housekeeping to do next year for sure, and it might go on for 2 years. So we get on to a sequence where three of the 5 citizen members have 3-year terms that roll over in succeeding years, and 2 of the members have 1-year terms. Mary Cisney submitted a lengthy and detailed CV or resume. Assuming people have had a chance to see that, she's not in attendance tonight, but are there any questions about confirming her to the Plan Commission? If not, a motion would be in order at this time. If anybody would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to have Mary Cisney on the Planning Commission.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, a motion by Supervisor German, seconded by Supervisor Stigler to appoint Mary Cisney to the Plan Commission for a one-year term ending April 30th, 2020. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Board of Appeals appointments, 8L. Appointment by Chairman Fisher of Ryan Licht to the Board of Appeals for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2022. I'm making that appointment. Item 8M is the action item, would be confirmation by the Town Board of the appointment of Ryan Licht to the Board of Appeals for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2022. 2 comments just by observation. Ryan Licht intended to be here personally tonight. He wasn't able to be here, but he did provide some information in writing. He is currently a member of the Board of Appeals. Again, we're cleaning up some of that because we're trying to get 5 members. Each one of those positions rotates or rolls over each year. So that's the 3-year term, which would end April 30th, 2022. So if there are any questions, I'd ask for a motion to confirm his appointment to the Board of Appeals.
I'll make a motion to appoint Ryan Licht to the Board of Appeals.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor Stigler to confirm the appointment of Ryan Licht to the Board of Appeals for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2022. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. 8N, appointment by Chairman Fisher, the appointment of Richard Zimmer to the Board of Appeals for a 2-year term ending April 30th, 2021. So I'm making that appointment. By way of explanation, he has served on the board for some period of time. He's a current member of the Board of Appeals. So item 8O is to ask you to confirm his reappointment to the Board of Appeals for a 2-year term ending April 30th, 2021. Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Richard Zimmer to the Board of Appeals.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor German to confirm the appointment of Richard Zimmer to the Board of Appeals for a 2-year term ending April 30th, 2021. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Are you prepared yet, or do you need more time? Okay, then we're going to go back to item 8I. Go ahead.
Well, I checked the Police and Fire. I checked the Police and Fire Commission, state statute 6213. I couldn't find anything in there that would require, but I do have concerns that the code needs to be amended in order to accomplish this based on what I'm reading of the organization 16.23 of the code.
So you're referring to our Town of Waukesha Code of Ordinances?
I am, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, no, that's
Fire
fine.
Department, section 16-23. What I think you're doing here is not consistent. For instance, it's already been noted, it'll go from 5 lieutenants to 4, so you've got to change that to 4 lieutenants. And I think you've got to show that there's a new position of a multifaceted lieutenant, you know, because you're saying that one of the 5, or 2 of, I guess 2 of the 5 are now being replaced by someone with different requirements.
No, that's not true. We're still gonna have 5 lieutenants. one will be a full-time lieutenant and one will be, and the other 4 are part-time lieutenants.
Well, I'm only reading the agenda. This change will reduce the number of on-call lieutenant positions from 5 to 4.
The on-call, it says that the number of on-call or paid on-call lieutenants, it reduces that to 4, but the total still remains at 5.
Well, Mr. Chairman, all I can do is read the code. There appears to be inconsistencies. If the chief and the administrator have reviewed the code and nothing that's being proffered tonight is in violation or the code doesn't need, you know, I don't really understand. Okay, this is a person who's a full-time firefighter, who they want to allow to be a full-time firefighter, EMTP, inspector, and lieutenant, apparently. Is that my understanding correct?
Correct.
And does he have to, he or she have to have worked for the department for 2 years? That's what the code requires.
Right, correct.
So this full-time
That's one
person
of the
could never
requirements,
be,
right.
this person couldn't be hired and be given this position. I find that inconsistent with what you're asking, but.
Out of the box, you're saying you couldn't do it that way. I get it.
Right.
Do we, let me ask this, try to move it ahead. I mean, if we were to take a minute, catch our breath, table this tonight, so we've got sufficient opportunity to do it, clean up the ordinance if that need be done, would that be taking a bit of time? Is that of any consequence to you, Chief?
No, that's fine.
I get
Well, the action tonight could be direct the staff to review the ordinance and bring back a new ordinance making the changes.
Understood. I mean,
Yeah,
that,
let's make the motion.
to make it affirmative to do that.
So we know that the consensus of the group is to make the change.
Rather than to
sort
do
of like we
nothing.
did the ordinance
I get it.
earlier tonight.
Yep.
We knew there was of a mind to repeal the CUs, and then
Right.
you told us to come back with the ordinance. We're doing the same thing.
Right.
If you make a motion, direct the staff to modify the ordinance as needed to accomplish the purposes, we bring the ordinance back.
do this, if you would kindly put those words into the form of a motion, and I bet somebody will sign on to be the maker of the motion. Would you do that, please?
Sure. I'd make a motion to direct the staff to review the current ordinances and bring back a revised ordinance as needed to accomplish the purposes as set forth in the agenda item.
Thank you. Would somebody like to be the maker of that motion?
I'll do it.
All right, somebody gutsy enough to second it?
I'll second.
All right, motion by Supervisor Stigler, second by Supervisor German. I'm not going to repeat it because I probably couldn't, but I think you understand it. Any further discussion?
Did we answer the question whether or not the fire commission needs to be a part of this?
The fire commission would not be part of creating the position. The chief will appoint someone to the position if you create it, and then they will be asked to ratify his appointment.
The individual.
That would not come back to you. So all subordinates are ratified by the commission. This would be a position that would have to be ratified by the commission. You would agree, correct?
That's correct.
That's
Okay.
why in answer to your question, are you approving anybody tonight? No, the town board never approves generally doesn't approve. They set the salary bases and they create the positions and they handle the money. The commission handles, the chief and the commission handles the appointments.
Okay, everybody understand where we're at? Any further questions?
So what would be the consequence if the ordinance wasn't followed? If we would just pass it tonight and the ordinance wasn't followed?
Well, my experience has been that years from now, when issues arise, you look to the ordinance and everybody goes, how did that happen? You know, and then no one seems to know that how it came to be, or that there appears to be an inconsistency or something. And I'm not saying for sure. The chief clarified there's still 5 lieutenants, but I would think that you're creating a new position. And it currently says the fire department consists of the following: 1 chief, 1 assistant chief, 3 deputies, 5 lieutenants, and 1 secretary treasurer. But you are creating a new position. And I would want to have that delineated for prosperity's sake going forward. That, and I mean, somebody at some time, fairly recently, I'm assuming, because I checked this, says the fire department should be comprised of full-time and part-time employees. Okay? So we've already got that in there. I wanted to make sure that was in there, full-time and part-time, because I'm assuming that's fairly recent. I mean, 10 years or so.
Yeah, I don't remember when exactly that was done, but it was done Yeah.
But
at
we
least
haven't
10
had
years.
full-time people for approximately how long? 10 years?
Since 2001 or 2.
Okay, so 20 years. So somebody new to do that, and now he's asking, if he thought he could already do it, he wouldn't be here tonight. So I'm trying to be consistent that there's a reason he's here tonight, because he's creating a position, and I think the ordinance should document that you've created the position
And be followed.
and be followed. Well,
And then,
yeah, that's
would that be necessarily creating position or actually modifying a position?
I guess that's semantics,
Okay.
as long as it's very clear. So we don't have to necessarily look for minutes from May 23rd of 2019 as to how this came about, and Kathy's scouring the minutes. Let's document it a little bit better. And if it ends up to be that you say everything's fine and all we need is a resolution or something, maybe that'll be as equally as good. But I think we should document it somehow, is my point.
Okay, does everybody understand, and are you comfortable with where we're at?
With the change or addition, or however we want to call it, is there also a pay change that's inevitable?
I would say yes.
Okay, further questions, further discussion? Everybody understands the motion? And all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you for doubling back to that. Thank you, Chief. Item 9, future meetings of the Committee of the Whole. Those are posted on the agenda for June 13th through August 8th. Any questions about that? Then we'll go to item 10, announce closed session. You're hereby notified that the Town Board of the Town of Waukesha will convene and may, upon motion duly made and seconded, acted upon by a roll call vote as required under Wisconsin Stats 19.85, parens 1, close parens G, close parens, go into closed session. During the course of the meeting, Town Board members may attend the closed session. The closed session will be as follows: confer with legal counsel, the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or likely become involved, specifically to address non-compliant property for Broad 8 Corporation. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we go into closed session.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Okay, the motion was made to go into closed session. Without a second, the motion dies. Accounts payable. Authorized payment of the bills. And we have a sheet here somewhere about that. Do you have that handy or not? I may have that in the bottom of the pile. I got one, thank you. Okay, accounts payable. The record Milky bill in the amount of $3,752.53. Is there a motion to pay that bill?
I'll make a motion we pay that bill to Ruckert and Milky.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, seconded by Supervisor Stigler to pay the Ruckert and Milky bill in the amount of $3,752.53. Roll call vote, please.
Chairman Fisher,
Abstain.
Supervisor Durr,
Aye.
Supervisor Stigler,
Aye.
Supervisor German,
Aye.
Supervisor Radke.
Okay, and then we've got authorization of payment of the remainder of the accounts. Payable bills in the amount of $29,361.87. Would someone like to move to pay those bills?
I'll make a motion we pay those bills in that amount.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second, moved by Supervisor Radke, seconded by Supervisor Stigler to pay the authorized payment of the remainder of the accounts. Payable bills in the amount of $29,361.87. Roll call vote, please.
Chairman Fisher,
Aye.
Supervisor Durr,
Aye.
Supervisor Stigler,
Aye.
Supervisor German,
Aye.
Supervisor Radke.
Okay. That passes unanimously. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor German to adjourn. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:30. Thank you all for coming. Have an enjoyable holiday weekend.